Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
I hope everyone had a great weekend. We have Experiencer SEV TOK with us tonight. Maybe you've attended one of her lectures at prestigious conferences or read her book, You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens, or heard her on many podcasts, like our buddy Chris Jordan's Curious Realm. We're glad she's with us tonight, and you can learn more about SEV by going to her website, planetsev.com. Hi, Sev, how are you doing?
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're looking forward to our talk tonight. I think I don't think it's really planned. There's a lot of guests we've had recently where I think this could be as you know, we talk for about the next hour or so. You know, I think there's going to be a lot of overlapping material, perspectives that you present that buttress or might tell a little different story, but when you've been, I guess, with Chris, you've presented some captivating information, and I was kind of like to look at a little bit at some of these patterns that seem to be emerging from the UFO studies.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we should just start at the beginning, and what are your earliest recollections of you being a contactee, and we keep moving our way to closer to today?
Mm-hmm. My earliest are conscious memories that started when I was age 10. From 10 to 12, there were numerous times, so many that I lost count, where I was visited by this being that would come in a spaceship, and I would find myself outside waiting for this spaceship. And I was always so happy when I would see it, because I felt like I was reuniting with a family member. And each time this spaceship would come from a different direction, and it would come and hover over me and land, and this being would come out, and it was checking up on me. And this being was It was more human looking than anything else. And it was a male, and it appeared that it was like in its 20s or 30s, and it had dark hair, and it had dark clothing on. And the most unusual feature of this being was its ears. They were just slightly different than ours. They were more almond or elongated than our ears. And it felt like it was my brother. And it would just make sure I was okay. And when our meeting was finished, I would find myself in my bedroom. And I would be like really shocked and confused because being in my bedroom felt less real, actually, than my experience with this space brother, as I called it. And I would just tell myself, well, just forget about it. Don't tell anybody. Just get dressed. It's time to go to 5th grade. And so I would go to school not saying anything to anybody. Although I could have shared this with my parents, but I didn't, and I don't know why. My parents were very open-minded and very modern and very innovative and really beyond their time. But I just never shared it with anybody for decades. And the last time I saw this being, I was around age 12. And this time, the very last time, was different because I was with a group of other children. And we were watching this spaceship fly away, and we were really sad. I realized this was the last time I was going to see this being. And I heard in my head that it was time to do my work. And at that age, I had no idea what that meant. Now that I'm older, I have an idea what that means. But I just tried to live my life as normally as possible for the next few decades, not really thinking about what my work was until 2017. So I was 10 years old when this was happening. So this was 1973. So from 1973 until 2017, I kept it all a secret because I had many experiences with a variety of different beings. But 2017 changed everything.
Okay, I don't give away the whole story right now, but did you're not talking about the contact experience stories. Was that related to you just didn't want to discuss it, or was there a little bit of a repressed memory or psychological thing going on where you didn't want to get triggered, which is related to memory? What were you thinking at such a young age?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It was mostly at that young age a disbelief that this could really be happening. And because no one else is really talking about it, I didn't want to talk about it. And I learned at a very young age when I talked to my little girlfriends about psychic information that I would get about people, that I should just keep quiet. I didn't really get a very positive response. So
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say a couple months ago when Jackie and Bill Kuselis were guests with us, and they were talking about the Silver Bridge collapse in Point Pleasant, kind of brought about the end of the Mothman sightings. People they interviewed 50-some years later, 53 years later, about there, they had different types of partial memories. It was too painful to really even talk about it. That memory recall seems to be an issue for some people. Your friend Kathleen Martin, has been a guest with us 2 or 3 times, and we've gotten into that too. Barney did not want to talk about his experience. Then you get to some of the hypnosis sessions, that's dealing with memory. It really I think it's a fascinating subject about recalling unusual traumatic events. We have heard that from a few guests. It's just did it really did these early events seem like they had a negative impact on you early? You were just talking about the awkwardness with your friends at school, but picture or after they started happening, were there any other negative issues associated with the experiences?
It was more fear of not understanding what was happening and not getting any validation from society or from others that it was happening to others. So I can't really say that I had really scary experiences when I was younger. My scariest experiences happened actually when I was older, when I talk about my MILAB or military abduction experiences. Those are scary than my ET contact. Okay. Yeah. It was more just a confusion and isolation. And for instance, when I got, I had 2 X's burned into my back on my tush, actually, in September of 2017. And it was after the second X was burned into me where I felt like I had this existential crisis because I had to face what was happening because I couldn't ignore these 2 X's that were burned into my back. They were very noticeable. And just dealing with accepting just a lifetime of ET contact. And what does this mean? Like, who am I? Who are we? What am I doing in the middle of the night talking with aliens? All those questions. More of a, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know who we are anymore. I don't know what I'm doing in the middle of the night anymore. It was more of that kind of confusion than really a specific scary situation.
Okay. Well, that's very understandable. You do, those photos of the X's are on your website, and Barbara has them on the we'll have them on the scroll on the YouTube archive. Those are curious. People talk about like the little indentations in this, like a scoop mark. Other indications that something had touched their skin. What are these two patterns signifying something that you've been able to recognize?
No, not really. Like, I don't have any recollection of having two X's burned in me before. I've had lots of marks on my body, scoop marks. I remember looking down once at my wrist, and there was a chunk of skin missing, and there was no blood.
Ew.
There wasn't even a scab. There was nothing, just a chunk of skin missing from my arm, and I didn't even feel it. And I would just look at that and go, oh, okay, I'm going to ignore it. And then other marks on my body, I had like this rectangular chunk of skin cut out of my back with 4 very straight, it's like someone took a knife and carved 4 straight lines into my back and took out a chunk of skin. Never even felt it. Bruises, all of these things that I ignored my whole entire life until 2017 with these 2 red X marks, and that made me wake up. That is what made me realize I can't ignore this anymore. And that's why that was such a life-changing event for me.
What, was there some kind of event that precipitated the appearance of the first X?
Well, there was a lot going on at that time. That's a really good question, because the first X came the second night that I moved here to the Inner Banks of North Carolina. I came here to the Inner Banks of North Carolina in September 2017, and the second night I was here, I had my first X burned into my back, and that was less than a year after I had a really strange incident in Roswell, New Mexico, where I came in contact with Greys. And this was back when I thought the Greys were evil. I thought they were really bad because I viewed my entire life through the lens of victimization, but I don't do that anymore. So I've been married twice, and they were abusive relationships. But I see now, looking back on those relationships, that I played the victim. And so after my second divorce, I realized I can't play the victim anymore. I have to figure out, what am I doing? Like, I'm the common denominator in these marriages. And so when I started to change my victim perspective into realizing I'm really in control, I am not a victim. None of us are. That's when I started realizing, that the Greys were not evil. They were actually helping me. And so that was a big breakthrough for me. And that's what I do with experiences around the world. I help them. So if anyone has had an experience, I encourage them to contact me through my website, planetsev.com, and I will help you come to terms with what's going on with your experience, because these are very valuable and very important experiences. To ignore them, we are choosing to ignore a very important and authentic part of our personal reality. And if we don't live in an authentic way, what happens. There's a lot of trouble in all areas of our lives. It's not really until we choose to be the most authentic version of ourselves that we can find success and fulfillment and happiness. So it's not a fluke, or it's not a coincidence if we come in contact with an ET or if we see a UFO. There's really good reason for that. So I help people discover what that really good reason is.
Mm-hmm. I've had limited experience dealing with MUFON, and you are an assistant state director for North Carolina for MUFON, and some of the few conversations I've had with MUFON representatives, they've have included parts of their willingness to investigate what the person saw. Go to talk with them. Go to the site. Okay, that's a form of validation. Do some research about the local weather. Did report a meteor flying overhead last night. They do try to be helpful, but they've also explained if there needs to be more intensive helping. They are there to help walk you through the process so that you can understand what you experienced.
Yes. So.
And Kathleen is involved in that as well. Yeah, she's spoken a little bit about that.
I'm a field investigator for MUFON. I have been since 2020. And the past year or so, I was asked to join the executive committee of the Experiencer resource team. So, also known as the ERT. And in the ERT, there's about 50 of us around the world. And we deal specifically with cases where the person comes in contact with another worldly being. So there's two kinds of cases. There's the cases like you were talking about where we see lights in the sky, and then we do a lot of research. We research military bases around what are there any satellites in the sky? Is there anything cosmologically unusual in the sky? We do that. But then there's another section of MUFON, the ERT, where we deal strictly with this contact with another worldly being. And that is not a very as scientific as a sighting. And we just talk with the experiencer as often as they would like, and to help them process what happened and to help them lose the fear if they have fear. Not everyone has fear after a contact, but most people do because it's a shock to your system. It's a shock to your reality, and it really changes your perspective on how you view yourself and how you view your role on this planet and actually your role in the entire galactic neighborhood.
Okay, so you, as being 29, you want to focus more on reversing the awkward social situations of just being 10 years old on the playground and you want to avoid the school chums laughing at you and that teasing, just those unfortunate situations that happen with younger kids, but you're have been using your experience more recently to be available to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that to be a common trait after an experience? Some of our guests have also discussed, like Michael Carter has said it probably numerous times about he, as well as many of his other people he talks to, want to, after their experience, they want to make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
yeah.
Barney Hill, might be one of the leading examples of that. But you're doing, you're basically following the same. That's just like an inevitable trait after an experience.
Yes, isn't that interesting? Because whether we're consciously aware of it or not, almost all of us do all of a sudden have this desire to help the world, help the individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and help the planet itself. Because we're given information as experiencers, we're given information about what's happening on this planet and how we can help. And I was given information about future fate. I was given information about the hybridization program. And so in Roswell, I had this really interesting experience where I came in contact with these other beings, the Greys, and they reminded me of a baby in a tube that I saw a few years prior. And then they gave me information about the hybridization program and how there are millions of people involved in the hybridization program between the Greys and humans, and many of these people don't realize it. And that's one thing about ET contact, is that it happens, most of it happens in this interdimensional, multidimensional way that feels like it's kind of dreamy or hazy. So some people think that what they're experiencing is a dream, but it's not a dream, it's real. And often these experiences, they never go away. They're very, very clear. Even decades later, when you think about them, they spark deep emotional response, and there's a clarity of memory there, unlike a dream. And so that's why there's so many people having experiences and they don't know it, because our society has trained us to think that when we have an interdimensional, multidimensional experience, to dream, it's a hallucination, it's fantasy.
Right.
But indeed, it's real. Yeah.
And
so many of us are given information not only about the possible fate of the human race or of Earth, but we're also given information to strengthen our psi ability. We're given information about the hybridization program. And many of us are debriefed. I think that is what the MILAB experience is a debriefing. The government knows who's having contact. And so many of us are asked to share the information that we're given, and most of us don't want to share it because we know that the information that we give to these particular organizations that are involved in MILAB will be used for nefarious reasons, will not be used to help mankind, but will be used to hurt mankind. And so many of us do not want to participate, and that's often when we then have these really negative experiences. in the lab. I've had neutral experiences and I've had negative experiences, but I've never heard anyone say, oh, I had the most marvelous experience in a MILAB experience. I've never heard that.
So,
and the MILAB
when
is a
did
military abduction for those, yeah.
Yeah, and when did the MILAB start?
Well, the MILAB, my first conscious memory of a MILAB experience happened the very same night that I talked with Kathleen Martin for the first time. So after my second X, I realized I needed help because I went into this X. And many months after that second X appeared on my tush, I was watching the movie Unacknowledged by Dr. Stephen Greer, and that like lit something inside of me. So I went to my computer and I told myself, this is it. I have to find someone to help me. And I heard in my head MUFON. So I Googled MUFON to see it's the Mutual UFO Network, which is the largest UFO organization in the world. And on the website, I saw a picture of Kathleen Martin. And I said to myself, she's the one. She's going to help me. So I emailed her and sent her a picture of my ex, and she responded right away. And then we had an hour and a half Skype, and she was so generous with her time. And you know what a lovely lady she is, and so helpful.
She is. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've since then become friends. Actually, we talked this afternoon. We just caught up and chit-chatted with each other this afternoon, and she says hello to you. And yeah, and I was very honored.
Chris wanted me to tell you hi too.
Yes, Chris. Yes, I'm fond of him. And Kathleen Martin actually endorsed my book, which I'm very honored about that. And after that conversation, well, actually during the conversation, I told her that I'm really afraid to come out because I'm afraid of the government, the men in black. And she told me some true stories about people who were bothered. And after our conversation, I called my mom. And just a couple of minutes into my conversation with my mother, my landline phone went dead. And that had never happened before, and it never happened since then. So when my phone went dead, I was like, oh, my God, here it goes. And then that night, I had my first conscious memory of a MILAB. And what had happened was I was in this, it was like an office under the ground. I remember there was down, kind of like a basement. And I was, it's always in these MILAB situations with me. I'm with these young men that look like they're in their 30s, and they have these like really drab clothing on, and it feels like it's government or military. And in this one particular instance, I was looking at a poster. There was a poster on the wall, and there was one of these military guys standing next to me. And the poster had the flight path of a spaceship, and there were lots of mathematical equations. And the guy said to me, or he asked me, when does the spaceship reach the K point? And after that, I don't remember anything. And the K point is a real thing. I have a biology degree from Loyola. I took a lot of physics, but I didn't remember what the K point was. And I Googled it, and the K point, I still really don't completely understand it. But I do know that in there was an Olympic sport that's ski on this, what do you call it, kind of like a lift, and then you go up in the air. I can't remember what that sport is called, but it's a really beautiful skiing sport when they jump up in the air and they're airborne. Maybe that might be it. It's a beautiful thing. And so the K point, there is a K point mentioned with that sport. So I was talking to Grant Cameron shortly after that, and Grant Cameron is a famous ufologist in Canada. Mm-hmm. And he had interviewed me a couple times. Yeah. And I told him about the K point, and then he sent me information about an experiencer who was also given information about the K point from the ETs. Yeah, so that was my first conscious memory of a MILAB where they were seeking information, where they were getting information. There were other times that they were trying to get information out of me too. And so this is a very common experience that experiencers have with these military-type men where we're being asked for information. Sometimes if we don't want to give up the information, we're kind of coerced to give the information.
So you have traveled to Roswell. You mentioned it a little bit ago. You also have on your website, diving down to the Bimini Road. You've had some of these unique experiences. Are Roswell and Bimini related? Could be, but are to those places somehow an extension of this decades-long pattern of contact experiences?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Mark, because I've also been to White Sands Missile Range.
Okay, that would be an interesting place to visit as well. What did you think of White Sands?
Mm-hmm. Well, the national park is gorgeous. It feels like you're on another planet. It's just nothing but this really white, powdery sand that you can slide down, and which is what we did, and it was really gorgeous. The White Sands Missile Range, I didn't like that at all. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. The whole time I was there, I went there because my ex actually contracted with the government, and he had work there, and so we went there. He wanted to show it to me, and it was on the base of a dark mountain, and the whole time I was there, I was really uncomfortable, and in my mind's eye, I could see that there were rooms and hallways and things under the ground, and I could tell that they were doing things that were not positive. I just could not get out of there fast enough. I did not like it at all, and when we finally left, I said to him, I don't ever want to come back here again. I have also thought about how is it that I ended up going to White Sands Missile Range, and then I went to the Bimini Island in the Bahamas, and I dove down and I touched the Bimini Road, which I think is a part of Atlantis. And my whole entire life, I've always lived around a major military base. My whole entire life, I've always been very close to a major military base, even today. And so I see these connected. They're very connected. Am I led to these places energetically? Am I getting information from these places? I don't know, but it's not coincidence. And many experiencers find themselves in these highly charged areas.
It is. I think you do an excellent job of communicating your story, and you just said you don't know if you were led to these places. It is what you've gone through, almost like Richard Dreyfuss, like shaping the mashed potatoes. You don't know why you're doing it, but
right.
I'm not trying to minimalize your story, but it's. I was just wondering if what Richard Dreyfuss was doing was something where you're trying to grapple with something that you are hoping to understand the bigger picture down the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And it is all-consuming. So once you decide that you're not going to ignore it anymore and you're actually going to pay attention and you're going to learn from it, it is all-consuming because you realize that this is huge because it's a complete paradigm shift. And it's a paradigm shift for our benefit. It's not to hurt us. It's to actually help us. It's actually to help us help the human experience, help each one of us deal with being human because it's really hard to be a human on Earth. And so with this extra information that we get from these experiences and that the ETs give us actually help us live as a human in a happier way, in a much more fulfilled way.
Okay. That makes sense. And when you've been a guest with Chris and a couple other shows, you present that kind of aspect. I think however many 10 times Michael Carter's been a guest with us. And I think he's projects a similar outlook. I think when maybe Wally from last week's show would do probably fall into the same category. I think you're, Sev, I think you have an interesting case. It's unique on its own, and we look at some of the other shows and see where there's a little bit of an overlap in this place, and it's over here as well. It's just really a captivating subject. I'm glad you're here to share it with us.
Oh, well, thank you for asking me. And I really think it's important for anyone who is an experiencer to admit it to themselves. I'm not saying you have to come out and write a book or do radio shows or TV shows or anything like that, but to admit it to yourself, because if you're hiding this real part of you, it manifests negatively in every arena of your life. It's not like you can hide this huge, really important part of you and then pretend like all areas of your life are going to be really stellar and magnificent and you're going to be successful. No, it doesn't work that way. If you're hiding something really important, a true fact about yourself, it's important you deal with that face on so that you can be happy in all realms of your life. So I do really help experiencers come out to themselves if they don't have to come out to other people. And on my planet, on my website, PlanetSev.com, you can contact me, and there's a few questions. It's all private that I ask you to answer, and then I'll contact you. And I also have a section on my website called True Stories, where I share some of these stories, but they're all very private. I will not expose you. And I also share some of the drawings and the paintings that people have made. I think it's very important that we share these stories. If we want to do it anonymously, at least let's do that, so we can help other people realize they're not alone and their experience, it didn't happen just to them, but it's happening to lots of people, and that really helps a lot. And these days, getting help is easier than ever. So decades ago, it wasn't easy to get help, but now, because of social media, it's really easy to get help. So I do encourage everyone to get help.
Well, when we had Steve, Jackie, and Bill doing the Mothman show at the end. I think it's the end of August. Bill and Jackie were discussing some of the people they interviewed after the bridge collapsed. They just said at that time in the late 60s, there really wasn't a support group who was trained to help, say 10, 13-year-old kids. Really the only kind of training in dealing with traumatic events was pretty much just for soldiers coming back from, say, the Vietnam War. Basically, a lot of people were just had to deal with the minister of their church, and when you've spoken at all these MUFON symposiums and conferences around the country, are more people discussing their experiences with you or presenters? Is it becoming more it's more socially acceptable to initiate the discussion to heal or to process under some kind of supervision, what happened. So that is happening on a more regular basis.
Yes. In fact, the very, very first conference I ever did was Alien Con. That was in 2018, and it was at Alien Con in Baltimore that I realized I want to help experiencers, because it was at that conference, I came out at that conference, and lots of people were coming up to me at my table when I was selling and signing my books, and they were telling me about their experiences, and they were also saying, I've never told anyone this, but I'm going to tell you. And now that's like music to my ears. And it was then that I realized, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to help experiencers. And so that was only 4 years ago. I mean, a lot's happened in just 4 years for me. And now, for instance, in the 2023 MUFON International Symposium, I'm going to be leading an experiencer a support group or an experiencer workshop there, where people can come and tell their story and get help understanding it, get help from me or get help from the other people who are there. One thing that MUFON does at their symposiums is that they offer these extra workshops for people, which is really marvelous. So I'm going to host a Sunday experiencer workshop, and Earl Grey is going to host Saturday experiencer workshop.
Okay. And is that the conference in Cincinnati?
Yeah, that's the one that's coming up in Cincinnati. Yeah, we just had one over the summer in Denver.
Okay. Cool. And the MUFON Symposium is in August of next year in Cincinnati.
It's around August 24, 25, 26, something like that. And I'm really happy that we're having it out here, like closer to the East Coast, because usually they're more off to the to the other side of the country. And I'm really glad that we're having one in Cincinnati, so it can make, because it can get, expensive. I realize it can get expensive to air travel and hotel and all that to keep traveling to these symposiums. So to have one in Cincinnati, I'm really hoping that people that usually don't come to MUFON symposiums can make it to this one, because they're really a lot of fun.
Yeah, Cincinnati's a nice city, and Northern Kentucky has a lot of places to visit, to cross the river, and have a variety of things to keep you busy. Just make it a several day trip and see your speech and the Fort Thomas Aquarium. There's a lot to see in the Cincinnati metropolitan area. Yes. And when I think we September, October of 21, Michael was his book Initiation came out, and Ramona Scott was co-hosting with me, and they got into a discussion about these types of conferences, as well as Ramona's program has been a way for more people of color to feel comfortable discussing what happened with them, and it was I think Michael made the point of we're starting to see that people of color aren't really underrepresented. They just aren't talking about it as much as white people. But I thought that was an interesting aspect of that little segment of the show. So it's nice to hear that more people are coming forward, willing to speak about their events.
Yeah, it makes me happy too. Even though they might just come to me and they might not come to anyone else. I mean, that's wonderful. To come to somebody, right? Yes. And like you said, it's happening across the board, all nations, all races, all sexes, all ages.
What are we supposed to learn as a society or race of people, humanity in general, the broader picture of mankind, whatever phrase you want to use. What are we supposed to be learning from these visitors that seem like they may have been here for since the beginning of time?
Well, one of the biggest messages has to do with victimization and how we've been brainwashed as a society. I'm talking basically about the American society right now, how we're really brainwashed into being victims, and to believe a certain way and to think a certain way and to act a certain way. And the information and the messages from the ETs are telling us to wake up, to realize that our government does like to keep us down and hold us down. And that's a very powerful message. And it's not surprising then that the MILAB is happening, because for those of us who are getting these messages and then passing it along to the masses, the government doesn't really want this because we're helping people become empowered, self-empowered, which is not something that our government wants us to be. Something else that the messages that are coming through have to do with our psi abilities, our paranormal abilities, and how we all have them, but many of us are not using them or acknowledging them. And when you strengthen your psi abilities, all of a sudden you have access to information, multidimensional, interdimensional information that can really help you in your human life, help you make decisions, help you make good decisions, lead the way to success and fulfillment. So these are all really positive, beautiful messages that we're getting. But for a government that likes to keep us down and keep us small and keep us victimized, they don't want us to share this information with people. But it's really a beautiful, empowering information and messages that we're sharing with each other.
Yeah. What would be an example of psi abilities that people in the audience might be just starting to become aware of? Could you walk us through any part of the learning about the ability to utilizing it, developing it, and utilizing it?
Well, one thing that a lot of people are interested in is communication with otherworldly beings, whether it's an ET or whether it's a spirit guide or a dead person. There's a variety of different entities in a variety of different dimensions, and we can make contact with all of them. And on my YouTube channel, Alien Spirit, I do have a series of videos that I created, and in those videos I share meditations that I created. They're guided meditations, music, and with my voice to help you make contact with these otherworldly beings that can help give you information as to how to live authentically. This is personal, private information, how you can achieve success, how you can feel you're in control, and how you can bounce out of the victim vibe. And that's something that I really encourage, and I do teach my clients workshops on how to connect with otherworldly beings to get this information. Something else that people can practice is just basic telepathy skills. Many times when people talk about their ET contact, the information comes without moving our lips. It's almost always that we're told the information we get from these ETs is through the mind, telepathy. So we can all do this. There are people, if you had asked them, are you telepathic? They would have said no, but then that very same night they came in contact with an ET that gave them telepathic communication, and the next day they're like, holy mackerel, I am telepathic. I didn't know it. And so these are things that you can strengthen. Astral travel, visiting other places on the planet or in the galactic system through meditation or through your mind. This is something that we can all do. And I encourage people to strengthen these things. Or predicting the future, even though it's really hard to predict the future because the future is changing in every second. But sometimes we can tap into another timeline, and we think that we can foresee the future. This is something that we can all do, and I really encourage everyone to strengthen these abilities.
Okay. And does what has been going on with you for the number of years, is that a family trait? Because we hear that, we've heard that from a few people, or is this just more you're just kind of isolated example from your family? Kathleen, her mom and her mom's sister, Betty Hill, were all multi-generational type experiences going on in their family.
Yes. It is generational, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so with my family,
an interesting subject.
I was brought up, my parents were very open-minded, and I was brought up with the belief that there are civilizations on other planets. That was just completely accepted since I was a little kid. But it wasn't until I got older that I started realizing that my mom, my dad, and my sister were having experiences. Now, did they really see it as ET experiences or more paranormal experiences? I think they chalked it up to being more paranormal than ET. And we really didn't talk too much about each other about these experiences, which is very interesting since we were all having them. And the other thing that now that I'm older, I see that Dad was encouraged these experiences on a personal level, but my mom and my sister really didn't encourage them as much as I did or as much as my father did. So even though it's happening to you, there's also an aspect of do you want to continue? Do you want to be involved? Or are you afraid of it? Are you running away from it? And I get the feeling that, at least right now, this is my perspective, that out of my family, it was my dad and I who were really wanted it to continue and who were really more interested in it happening than my mom and my sister, even though it was happening to all of us.
Okay. Interesting. Everyone just responds differently to all these types of events, and that's you're providing more, eyewitness accounts that buttress what some of our other guests have said. So what? I was just looking at the clock, and I know you have to wrap up some, business, before it gets too much later. But what is next for you in personal growth, ET, paranormal research? What do you have in the works?
Well, thank you for asking. I do have a couple conferences coming up. I'm going to be at the McMenamins UFO Festival in Oregon. That's in May. And then I will be at the MUFON International Symposium in Cincinnati. That's in August. And there's a couple other conferences that are in the works. I'm starting my second book. And I'm really focusing more than ever on helping experiences and the messages that the experiences are getting. And I'm compiling these messages, and I want to share them because I really believe that these messages are going to help transform our reality in a much better way. It's a big benefit for us. I really think that it's getting easier and easier to talk about these things. Now you can turn on the news and there's news about UFOs, whereas 10, 15 years ago we didn't see that. So a lot's happening very, very, very quickly. which is all really good. The government's still hiding a lot, but that's not a surprise. But at least it's not as cuckoo wacko to talk about as it was just 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. That was a good point. So you want to give out your website and any title of your book and where people can get it, and I'll let you get back to finishing your business day. But I just wanted to give you that opportunity, plug your website and where to get your books. And thank you for being such a fantastic guest, and we'll have to do this again.
Thank you. I would love to. I'm honored to be your guest. Thank you for asking me. So my website is planetsev.com, and the reason I call it Planet Sev is because there's actually a planet and a star system named after me in the Star Wars galactic system, the planet Sev Talk and the star system Sev Talk. And for anyone who watches Star Wars Andor, which is a very popular show on TV, recently on one of their last episodes they mentioned the planet Sev Talk, and I heard from a lot of people, and they think it's a coincidence that my name is Sev Talk and there's a planet Sev Talk. They don't realize that actually the planet and the star system was named after me. So that's a cool thing. I have a friend of mine who was an author who wrote a short story for Star Wars, and then he said he was going to name a planet after me, and I thought he was kidding, but he wasn't, and he did. So now he's given me the gift of immortality in the Star Wars galactic system.
Good for you.
And,
you deserve it.
Thank you. So I also have my YouTube channel, Alien Spirit. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. I'm really easy to find. My book is called You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens, and it's available on Amazon.
Okay. That sounds terrific.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank you again for the terrific show, and thank you, Chris, for highly recommending Sev.
Yeah, I guess.
And you need to get wrap up a couple things. And thank you again. We will keep in touch, and you're welcome to come back.
Thank you.
And the Amazon link is on the Barbara's website as well, so people can easily get the book. So, so I just want to thank you again, Sev, for being a great guest, and we will do this again sometime soon. And I appreciate you being so open about your experiences, and hopefully a forum like Nightlight is helping to raise awareness. So
you are. You're doing what you're doing is really important work, and I'm so grateful for what you're doing and what Barbara's doing, and I thank you very much for including me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I think Barbara has a show Thursday morning, like at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Listeners are going to be up that early. Fascinating show. And next Tuesday, I have Ryan Peterson on, so that'll be another interesting lead up to Christmas. But we got some good messages today about uplifting topics during the holiday season, greater awareness, and I think it's all so many pieces are coming together.
Yes, yes.
All right, so I think we'll wrap the show now, and I appreciate you being a guest, Sev, and we will have you back sometime soon, and keep us posted about everything that is going on with you, and look forward to the next time.